Welcome to our deep dive. We're talking abundance today, but not the usual kind of abundance, not just money, money, money.
No, not at all.
We're using Lawrence Bolt's book, The Tao of Abundance,
Hmm.
as kind of our guide. It's really fascinating. He brings in a lot of Taoist philosophy
Yeah,
and how it applies to, well, all of us.
it really does. And it's a more holistic view,
Yeah.
thinking about things like, well, your quality of life, inner peace, and really living in a way that's true to yourself.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You sent over some excerpts from the book.
Yes.
And wow, it's really packed with ideas that kind of make you stop and think. So
Yes.
we're going to break it all down for
Yeah.
everyone,
Right.
but also, point out those little aha moments, the things that really make this deep dive so interesting.
Exactly.
Okay, so first of all, Bolt kind of throws the typical definition of abundance out the window.
Hmm.
He says it's not about material wealth.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about like a feeling,
Yeah.
an
That-
overflowing sense of well-being.
Hmm.
Like how wealthy are you if you're
Hmm.
surrounded by, I don't know, piles of money, but you're miserable?
That's a great point. And actually, Bolt looks at like the origins of words,
All right.
words like wealth and prosperity.
Hmm.
And originally, they had more to do with well-being, feeling fortunate. Really, it's about aligning with the flow of life, what Taoists call the Tao.
I love that. It's like instead of chasing after some, I don't know, external measure of success,
Hmm.
it's about tapping into something deeper within ourselves.
Yeah, you got it. And that brings up another, well, crucial point, really. This idea of trusting in some kind of, I don't know, a larger intelligence, something at play in the universe. But don't worry, it's not about a judging God or anything like that.
Mhm.
No. Taoism sees it as more of a natural order,
Uh-huh.
an organic order where everything's connected and sort of influences everything else.
So it's more about trusting, I don't know, the process of life itself,
Yes.
knowing that there's this um, underlying intelligence guiding things.
Exactly. You get it. It's accepting that everything, well, has its own place
Uh-huh.
and its purpose. And that whole process, it's a real shift. Instead of trying to control everything, we're aligning with the natural flow.
That makes me think of the five fingers of the Tao that Bolt talks about.
Yes.
He uses a hand as a metaphor
Right?
to show how all these different parts of life are all connected.
Yes, it's a brilliant analogy.
Is.
He talks about, the transcendent nature, your inner world, work and relationships, and society.
Hmm.
They're all linked. They're not separate. They're just different parts of this one whole.
Yeah, just like you need all five fingers to, use your hand.
Right. And understanding these connections, well, it helps us see how Taoist philosophy isn't just, an ancient thing. It's relevant to us now.
Yeah.
It's got this practical wisdom for, navigating all the stuff we face today.
And speaking of, well, modern day stuff,
Yeah.
something that really struck me in the book was how much we're just bombarded with these messages of scarcity.
It's true.
It's like everywhere we turn, we're told we're not enough. We don't have enough.
And it's everywhere, right? Like advertising and the media and even the way we're raised, it all reinforces that feeling of lacking something.
Yeah, it's like we're always on this treadmill, running and running, but getting nowhere.
Exactly. Bolt calls it the way of the ego, always striving, comparing, and feeling separate from, well, the abundance that's already there.
So our ego is fixated on what's missing
Yes,
instead of appreciating what we already have.
that's exactly it. And that just leads to constant dissatisfaction. It
Okay.
does. And the way out of that, well, the key is cultivating receptivity.
Receptivity.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So instead of grasping at things, clinging to possessions,
Uh-huh.
we can just open up to the abundance that's already there.
So instead of I need more, it's more like I'm open to receiving.
Yes. Imagine yourself as like a vessel, ready to be filled with all the good things, joy, wealth, love, whatever it is you desire.
It reminds me of that saying, nature abhors a vacuum.
Right.
If we're only focusing on what we lack, well, we're just creating a vacuum
Exactly.
that can only be filled with, well, more lack.
And it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
You might have tons of opportunities right in front of you,
Uh-huh.
but if you're not open, you won't see them.
But if we focus on gratitude, on what we already do have and that openness,
Yeah.
then we create space for that abundance to flow in.
Beautifully said. It's about aligning your thoughts and beliefs and actions with the abundance you want, and then trusting the universe to support you in that.
Okay, this is where it gets interesting for me.
Okay.
Bolt introduces this idea of wu wei.
Mm.
It translates to effortless action. It
Hmm.
seems kind of contradictory. How do you get anything done without putting in effort?
Well, think of it like aligning yourself with the Tao, that
Okay.
natural flow, acting without, forcing or struggling. It's not about being passive. It's
Okay.
more like, have you ever been in the zone?
Oh, yeah.
Everything just clicks.
Yes.
That's the idea.
And Bolt talks about athletes, right?
Hmm.
Using visualization to improve their performance.
Yes,
And it's almost as effective as, actual practice,
almost.
which just shows you how powerful our subconscious mind is.
Absolutely. And what I really appreciate about Bolt is he doesn't just explain these concepts, he actually gives you tools, techniques for incorporating these ideas into your life.
So it's not just some theoretical, you know,
No, not at all.
com-
He gives you real-world stuff to try. And he even uses modern science, research, and all that to back up his points.
so he's bridging the gap between ancient wisdom and, our modern understanding.
Exactly. And that's what makes this deep dive so exciting. We're not just talking about old philosophy. We're figuring out how we can apply this ancient wisdom to our lives today, you know?
In practical ways.
Exactly.
Speaking of practical application, he talks about this concept of teye.
Yes.
It's all about recognizing and expressing those, I don't know, those unique gifts and abilities,
Hmm.
the things that make you you.
Exactly. And he makes this really interesting point, that in modern society, there's all this pressure to conform, to fit in.
Right.
And it actually pulls us away from expressing our pay. We get so caught up in pleasing others,
Yeah.
meeting their expectations, that we lose sight of ourselves.
So it's like we're trading our authentic selves for approval.
That's it. And it's no wonder so many people feel drained and unfulfilled in their jobs and their relationships.
Right.
It's like we're still stuck in that, approval-seeking mindset from childhood.
Yeah.
We need to cut those cords.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like graduating from that need for constant validation.
Yes, exactly. And finding the confidence to just be yourself, no matter what anyone else thinks.
This brings us to Bolt's critique of the economic system,
Yeah.
which is, well, it's pretty challenging.
It is.
He really questions the whole foundation of how we view money.
Mm.
He goes so far as to call money a fiction.
Mm.
That's become the dominant force in our world.
It really has.
And, well, he makes a pretty convincing case that this fiction has led us down a path that's not sustainable, and that creates inequality.
He argues that, treating labor and land and money as commodities has created a system that prioritizes profit above everything else.
Uh-huh.
And that often comes at the expense of human well-being and the environment.
Yeah. And he has some pretty powerful examples to illustrate this point.
He does. Like, remember the British East India Company in India?
Yeah, they were basically extracting wealth without actually creating anything of real value.
It's a perfect example of how the pursuit of profit can lead to exploitation.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is our current system actually creating real value? Or is it just moving money around to benefit a select few?
It's a sobering thought, and it raises some really important questions about how this system perpetuates inequality and undermines our own sense of abundance.
But, Bolt doesn't just leave us with a bleak picture. He introduces this concept of Gen,
Yes.
which means human-heartedness.
Right.
It's about, amidst all the critique, he reminds us of the importance of things like compassion and connection and just, I don't know, being present in the moment.
He reminds us that we're not just cogs in this machine, that true abundance is about more than material wealth. It's about living a rich life, full of experiences, connections, meaning, the good stuff.
It's about remembering that we're human beings, not just human doings.
Exactly.
And that leads us to Bolt's exploration of lie.
The beauty of the Tao.
He describes it as the underlying order and beauty of the universe, that pattern that connects all of us. And he argues that art can help us perceive and appreciate that beauty.
Unfortunately, he also points out that art has been hijacked by commercial interests,
Oh, yeah, he talks about that.
using it to sell us things instead of inspire us.
Yeah, like those TV commercials that use symbols from art and religion to make us feel like we need to buy something
Yeah.
to experience transcendence.
Right.
The merchandising of transcendence, as he puts it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they're preying on our deepest desires for connection, for meaning, just to sell us stuff.
It's pretty insightful.
And it's a challenge for us to reclaim the power of art, to reconnect with the beauty and wonder that's all around us. in the everyday.
It's a beautiful message, something to hold on to as we navigate this, well, this complex world.
It is.
So should we dive into part 2? See what else Bolt has to say?
Let's do it. There's so much more to uncover. So, going back to Wu Wei,
Yeah.
that whole effortless action thing,
Right.
what really stood out to you?
You know, I have to admit, it seemed kind of, I don't know, counterintuitive at first.
Yeah, I get that.
Like, how do you actually get things done
Yeah.
without, putting in the effort?
It's a shift in thinking, for sure.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
But as I kept reading, it started to make sense. It's more about working with the natural flow of things
Mm-hmm.
instead of, constantly swimming upstream.
Yeah, instead of forcing it.
Yeah, like not forcing things to happen,
Right.
but more, I don't know, like a surfer catching the right wave.
That's a great analogy. And it really ties into, what Bolt was saying about cultivating that sense of receptivity.
Hmm.
Instead of clinging so tightly to, outcomes, to things.
Right.
He says we can actually become one with the experience of abundance.
Become one with it.
Yeah. Imagine just allowing it to flow into your life.
Wow.
And he really emphasizes that when we operate from that place of scarcity,
Uh-huh.
well, it's almost like we're pushing abundance away.
Oh, interesting.
But when we shift to gratitude,
Mm.
appreciating what we have and being open to those new possibilities,
Yeah.
then it's like we become a magnet.
It's attracting abundance.
Exactly.
That's so cool. It's like they say, what you resist persists.
That's it. The more we focus on what we lack, the more we just, reinforce that feeling of lack.
Right.
But when we shift our focus to appreciation, it creates this totally different energy, this positive, receptive energy.
Bolt tells that story, about the man who's complained to God about not being saved from the flood.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
And God's like, hey, I sent you a boat, a helicopter, and a truck,
Right.
but you refused all of them.
He wanted to be rescued on his terms.
Exactly. And the man's like, well, no, I wanted you to, part the waters or something.
Right.
Such a good illustration of how our own, expectations, our rigid thinking.
Can really block us
Yeah.
from receiving the abundance that's already there.
So how do we cultivate that receptivity?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Bolt has some practical suggestions, doesn't he?
He does. Things like practicing gratitude, really focusing on what you do have, letting go of that attachment to specific outcomes, because the universe might have something even better in store for you than what you originally had in mind.
So it's like, I don't know, like doing a mental detox,
Mm.
clearing out all those, limiting beliefs that are just clogging up your flow of abundance.
It's like hitting the reset button,
Yeah.
coming back to a place of balance and clarity so you can see those opportunities.
Speaking of recognizing opportunities,
Yes.
T, our innate power.
Right. And Bolt makes the point that we so often just give our power away
Oh, how so?
by constantly seeking that approval from others. He draws this interesting parallel between those tribal initiation rites,
Yeah.
marking that transition into adulthood,
Right.
and what he calls a psychological second cutting of the umbilical cord for us in, modern society.
So we need to, shed that approval-seeking mindset we carry from childhood.
Yeah, we need to graduate from it. It's about finding that inner strength to be yourself, regardless of what other people think. That's where real freedom is.
It makes you realize how much energy we waste trying to fit into these boxes that society creates.
It's exhausting. It's no wonder people end up in these jobs, these relationships that just drain them.
Because they're not living in alignment with who they really are.
Exactly.
He tells that story, I think it's in this chapter, about, men choosing careers based on what they think will impress women.
Oh, yeah, and then ending up hating their jobs. It's like a cautionary tale.
It is. It's about chasing external validation
Mm-hmm.
instead of following your own path.
Yeah.
So it's about recognizing that your worth comes from within,
Exactly.
not from some external source.
And it takes courage,
Yeah, it does.
to embrace that, to stand out, to pursue those passions, even if they don't fit, the mold.
Bolt emphasizes that this isn't about dominating others, though.
You're right.
It's about living authentically.
It is. And that brings us to, I think, one of the most challenging parts of Bolt's argument.
Oh.
His critique of the economic system. He really, he shakes things up by questioning, how we understand money.
Yeah, he doesn't hold back.
He doesn't. Calling it a fiction that's become this dominant force. And, he argues that it's leading us down a path that's not sustainable, that creates inequality. He's saying that by treating things like, labor, land, even money itself as commodities.
Right.
We've created a system that puts profit above everything else, and it comes at a cost to people, to the planet.
He uses those examples,
Right.
like the British East India Company.
Right. Just extracting wealth without actually creating anything of real value.
Yeah, and it's a clear example of how this pursuit of profit can just lead to, exploitation.
Exactly.
And he also talks about the history of usury,
Right.
pointing out how it's been condemned for centuries.
By philosophers, religious leaders.
Yeah, and how our current system, with all its emphasis on debt and interest, is basically perpetuating that problem.
It is. He really makes a strong case that the way we view money, how we use it, has created a system that benefits a small elite
At the expense of everyone else.
at the expense of everyone else. And this whole mindset, it seeps into, well, everything, even our leisure time.
Oh, right. Bolt talks about how even our leisure time has become commercialized. We're always being sold to.
Constantly. It's like we become consumers instead of creators.
He compares the pace of life in, those traditional societies where time was measured by natural cycles with our modern obsession with efficiency and productivity. It's like we're always rushing.
We are trying to cram as much as we can into every single day, and then we wonder why we feel so stressed and burnt out.
Time poor, even when we have, all this material abundance.
Exactly. It's like we've forgotten how to just be.
To slow down,
Yeah.
to appreciate those simple things.
And that's where I think, Bolt's discussion of Jen is so important, that human-heartedness. He's reminding us that a truly abundant life includes that deep connection.
To ourselves, to others, to the world around us.
It's about cultivating compassion, empathy, understanding, these qualities that are so often missing in a society that's so focused on competition.
And self-interest.
Yeah. He encourages us to be kind, generous,
Mm.
to have that spirit of service,
Mm.
recognizing that true abundance isn't just about what we receive, it's also about what we give.
It's that shift from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset.
Yes.
Knowing that there's enough for everyone, we can all thrive together.
Exactly. He's reminding us that true abundance isn't about accumulating possessions, it's about cultivating those qualities of the heart and mind.
The things that bring us joy, fulfillment, that connection with life.
Exactly. You ready to explore that a bit further?
It's amazing how Bolt brings all these different things together. Ancient philosophy, modern science, practical advice for living a more fulfilling life. It really makes you stop and think.
Yeah, he really challenges some of those deep-seated assumptions we have about, well, especially about money.
Yeah, the economic system. It's so easy to get caught up in that, more is better mentality.
Especially in a culture that's constantly bombarding us with those messages.
Right. Scarcity, consumerism, all that.
But Bolt asks this really interesting question. What if true abundance isn't about having more?
Mm,
What if it's about being more?
that's a good one. I love that. So it's about recognizing the abundance that's already there.
Exactly.
Both the material things
Uh-huh.
and the non-material stuff, like love, connection, that inner peace.
He reminds us that we're not just consumers.
No.
We're creators. We have the power to shape our reality.
And that power comes from aligning with the Tao, right?
Yes.
With that natural flow of life,
Huh.
trusting our intuition, expressing our true selves, acting with that, ease and flow.
And remember, he gives us the actual tools to cultivate these qualities. Meditation, breath work, visualization.
Oh, right. Spending time in nature, all those things.
It's not just about changing your mindset, it's about embodying it.
So it's about, I don't know, less striving, more allowing.
Yes. Less forcing, more receiving, moving from scarcity to abundance.
Bolt's message is really, well, hopeful, empowering even. He's
Yeah.
saying we have the power to choose a different path.
We do. One that leads to a more fulfilling life, a more sustainable life, a more abundant life for everyone.
So for everyone listening right now,
Mm.
what's that one thing you can take away from all this, from our deep dive?
I would say think about how you can bring these Taoist principles into your own life, in a real practical way.
Can you cultivate a little more of that receptivity? Embrace that wu wei, that effortless action.
Hmm.
Discover and express your tea. Reclaim some of that leisure time. Reconnect with the beauty that's all around you.
He even has some practical exercises in the workbook section of the book. I definitely encourage people to check those out.
See what speaks to you.
Exactly. Because remember, this is a journey.
It's not a destination.
It's about finding that alignment with the natural flow of life, trusting your own wisdom, and living in harmony with yourself and the world around you.
Beautifully said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Tao of Abundance. We'll leave you with this final thought from Bolt. The kingdom of heaven is spread upon the earth, and men do not see it. Maybe, just maybe, by cultivating this Taoist perspective, we can all start to see it, the abundance that's already here.